In Leamington Spa sends clouds of smoke into the sky. We'll have the latest from there.
Gold for Kadina Cox, gold for Great Britain in paracycling.
And gold in the velodrome for Kadina Cox as another world record tumbles.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Chris Shipp.
Hello, good afternoon. The intelligence predicted it and the suicide attacks were devastating. But today, as Afghanistan mourns its dead, 90 at the last count, and America prepares for 13 military funerals, desperate Afghans have returned to Kabul airport, the location of yesterday's explosions. But UK troops have now closed the gates. No more evacuations will be processed, and the RAF is now planning to make its final flights from Kabul. The Defence Secretary said he's having to leave British military kit in Afghanistan to make more room for people on the last planes out. Some British forces have already left. Juliet Bremner has the latest.
Blood-stained walls now mark the place where scores of people lost their lives. British soldiers have gone. The gate where they were checking documents is closed, along with the hotel that was the last British base in Taliban-held Afghanistan.
We took across 500 security personnel, the military that were guarding it, and the 800 people that we were processing and are now processing them on the airfield side off the airport, and therefore we'll take those out during the day. But now the gates are closed, it's sealed off, and we're into the next stage, which is removing our military from Kabul.
In the capital, desperate families search a list of those confirmed dead. The death toll keeps rising, and many are still missing. One of my brothers was at the airport, Abdul Majid explains. Unfortunately, I can't find him. The destruction and distress caused by the suicide blast has added to the panic felt by those left behind, now realising that they will not be getting onto an evacuation flight. I spoke to one British passport holder who was working with British military contractors but couldn't fight his way through to the airport.
I feel like I'm abandoned. I feel alone. Am I going to hear jets come flying over and start dropping bombs? Like, I'm not safe from all sides. I don't know what's going to happen. This is the worst feeling. It's not just about leaving the country. It's the instance that you don't know what's going to happen after the 31st, which makes it worse.
Good morning, America. Chaos in Kabul.
In America, the deaths of 12 Marines and a Navy medic are the greatest loss of military life for more than a decade. It's left the president who ordered this hurried evacuation visibly upset but vowing revenge.
We will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
According to former defence chiefs, the scenes that have unfolded in Kabul during the last 24 hours will be deeply damaging to this administration.
And there's no question that it's probably Joe Biden's worst nightmare to lose 13 Marines as a result of what's happened here. This has got to be the worst day in his administration.
As the last few hundred people are flown out of Kabul and the troops prepare to leave themselves, the legacy of this chaotic evacuation is likely to be felt for decades to come. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
This was the deadliest day for American forces in Afghanistan in a decade. Let's go to Kate Fisher, who is in Washington. Kate, the most difficult moment for Mr. Biden's presidency by some margin. What has been the reaction in the US?
Well, there is shock here. There are flags across this city flying at half-mast this morning. Certainly the darkest of days for this president who framed himself as a seasoned leader with a steady hand on the global stage. The whole reason that Joe Biden said he wanted to get US troops out of Afghanistan once and for all was to protect American lives, get them out of harm's way. Yet this was the deadliest attack on US troops for more than a decade. He says, though, that it will not change his policy. He is determined more than ever. It's reinforced his conviction that the right thing to do is to end the war there and to continue this evacuation, despite the fact that the US military has warned there is likely, very likely, to be more such attacks before US troops finally leave the country. Well, he made searing comments at the White House yesterday about this, but his policy continues. And he's always said that he carries in his breast pocket a tally of the number of lives who've been lost of US servicemen and women across Iraq and Afghanistan. And for the first time in his presidency, he's going to have to add names to that list that were lost under his watch.
Indeed. Kate in Washington, thank you very much. Well, Libby Wiener is in Westminster for us. And Libby, you spoke to the Defence Secretary this morning. He said we're in the final hours of this evacuation, that some people haven't made it out. So what next for them?
Well, yes, defiance from the Prime Minister yesterday in the face of these appalling terrorist attacks, but a very different tone from the Defence Secretary, acknowledging now that this will be the last day that civilians are evacuated by the British from Afghanistan. He said that he was concerned about what he called the higher profile people who might be very worried about their security, and he said that Britain would do all it could to try and get them out, but I think the practical options are very limited. He suggested that if people managed to get themselves to the border, for example with Pakistan, Britain would accept them. The scheme for Afghans who have worked for the British would remain open indefinitely, he said. He also suggested that the Taliban might reopen the airport to civilian flights, but those who've been living in fear of the Taliban, I think, would be very reluctant indeed to go to the airport once Western forces depart. Now, Ben Wallace is one of the few ministers who has raised questions about this whole operation and the deal that President Trump did last year with the Taliban. He said today again that he did regret that we were having to leave by the 31st of August.
Libby Wiener in Westminster, thank you. And for those who managed to board one of the UK military flights in the past week or so, their new lives are just beginning, but they don't know when or if they will next see the loved ones they had to leave behind. Alham Barakzai is a student who had permission to fly as she had a scholarship here. She told me from her quarantine hotel at Gatwick that she will never forget the trauma of the last few days, particularly hearing of yesterday's explosion.
Well, that was the hardest thing I've heard in my life, because I had family waiting to be evacuated from Kabul. I had so many friends, and when I heard about that news, I was like, who should I call first? Like my family, my friends, who? That was so hard.
Have you managed to get in touch with your family?
Yes, with my family, yes, but not with all my friends. I'm so worried about all of them.
Now, you were able to get a place, of course, because you are a student, you are on a scholarship. You must now wonder if you will ever return to Afghanistan.
Well, you see, not meeting my family again and not meeting my country and my friends again was never an option, and it's still not an option. I will try my best to meet them again. I will try my best to find any chance and any way possible to get to meet them again, because life without them is totally pointless.
And that, I think, for many people in your situation is the terrible place that you're in. Your family are still in Kabul. You have managed to get to safety. You're now in the UK. And yet you fear you may not be able to see your family ever again.
Overnight, everything changed. And now there is a chaos. I don't know what will happen. I don't know. I wish I could, like, there was a clue that would tell me that what will happen tomorrow to my family, to my friends, and to my home. But I don't know.
It's unbelievably uncertain. I mean, are you able to describe what the scenes are like outside Hamid Karzai Airport in Kabul? Because you clearly were processed, you successfully got to the UK, but what is it like outside that airport?
That trauma will always remain here. the people waiting to get the chance to get out of the country, the crowd, the humiliation, Taliban's gunfires. That was the toughest thing that I've ever experienced.
Elham, listen, I really do appreciate you talking to us. You've had such a difficult few days, and I know everything is uncertain for you at the moment and for your family. So thank you very much. It's really important that our viewers get to hear from people like you, and we wish you all the luck and we wish you well in the next period of your life.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, of course.
Please raise our voices. Don't let us to be silent. I'm here and I have a voice, but there are a lot of people that don't have a voice to raise. Please be our voice, please.
And it's important that Afghanistan remains in the news even after this evacuation ends. So, Elham Barakzai, I know it's difficult. Thank you. My interview with Elham a few moments ago, and our senior international correspondent John Irvine, who reported from Kabul since the Taliban takeover, has now left Afghanistan, but he's written about his time there and his departure from there. It's a compelling read. It's on our website at itv.com/news. The day's other stories now, and cases of COVID-19 have risen across the UK in the week to August the 20th. The latest figures show 1 in 70 people in England now have coronavirus. That is up. But in Northern Ireland, they have the highest rates of the 4 UK nations at 1 in 40. That's also the highest since last October. Professor Tim Spector from King's College London joins me now. I mean, Tim, up across all corners of the UK, presumably the schools going back in Scotland, of course, they're already back at school. The holidaymakers in the southwest of England. Are we able to pinpoint exactly why this has happened?
It's a combination of factors, I think. You've hit on some of them that are causing some of these problems. And we've already seen a major rise in Scotland, and we think that's due to school kids driving it. And that's probably going to get worse next week in the rest of the UK as kids go back and the under 18s seem to be driving a lot of that. Other factors are, of course, that we are seeing vaccines waning. So about 14,000 cases, according to the Zoe COVID study that I run, are in fully vaccinated people every day. That's a lot of people, and that rate is going up. And partly because the vaccines, after about 3 or 4 months, do start to wane in their efficacy. And this is to be expected, but we've sort of put it to one side. So we're going to see increasing numbers of cases who have been vaccinated, which hopefully will stay milder, but will keep this virus driving. And I think finally the last reason is that this country, unlike most other European countries, has pretty much given up all restrictions internally. We still have lots of travel restrictions, but inside the country, very little in the way of mask wearing, social distancing, etc., which other countries are still doing. And that's why we've got the worst rates in Europe at the moment. And it's likely to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and you mentioned the lack of restrictions. I mean, one of the things that is coming up over the bank holiday weekend, at least it is in some parts of the UK, are the festivals where you've got a lot of young people gathering in close proximity, and young people who might not have the same high rates of vaccination as other parts of the population.
Yes, I think there are reports that a recent festival, I think it was Latitude Festival, over 1,000 people were infected, and this is sort of what you would expect with these rates in the population, between 1 in 50 and 1 in 100 people carrying the virus. And, at the moment, we have to really think, if you're going to one of these festivals, your risk of getting infections is really high. And we mustn't forget that although most cases are mild, rates of death are going up, over 150 cases a day. We're seeing hospitalizations going up. And also, according to our Zoe app, 850 new cases every day of long COVID. and that can affect young people. So I think we might have taken the brakes off a little too soon. I can understand why we're doing it because of our high vaccination rates, people feeling safe. But, you know, this is still going to be around for a couple of years. And I think we ought to try and find some balance between these increasing rates and getting that right balance of security and safety at what particular cost. But it's certainly a worry.
Professor Spector, thank you very much indeed for your analysis on today's figures.
My pleasure.
Still to come, heat waves for some could push this summer into the warmest top 10 on record in the UK, believe it or not. And another gold, another broken world record in Tokyo for British Paralympics. Warwickshire firefighters are dealing with a huge fire in Leamington Spa this afternoon. It started on an industrial site in the town. Mark Goff is there now. Mark, we can see some of that black smoke behind you right now. What can you tell us?
Yeah, it's incredible. This is undoubtedly a huge fire. As you say, it's on an industrial estate behind me. Some eyewitnesses say it started in a plastics factory. Now, it's died down a bit, but when I got here about an hour and a half ago, it was incredible. It was like an inferno. You know, I've covered a lot of fires in my time, but in the middle of all the billowing smoke, you could just see pockets of flames exploding and sending that huge black pool of smoke up into the sky. I spoke to a couple of eyewitnesses. They worked in the factory next door, and they said they saw people running from the factory which had gone on fire. They said they looked absolutely terrified, and they were trying to stop people from approaching the factory. And those two eyewitnesses, actually, they had to get out of their factory by cutting a hole in the fence. Police have been here all morning. They've evacuated hundreds of properties, and also people are being told to close their doors and windows because we just don't know what might be in those fumes. But this is a huge fire, and the fire service will be here for some time.
OK, Mark in Leamington Spa, thanks for the update. Now, it might not have felt it in all parts of the country, and August has been decidedly cool for many, but this summer so far has been around 1 degree warmer on average. It means it could be in the top 10 warmest summers in the UK on record. Charanpreet Kaur is here to talk us through the numbers. I mean, some people might dispute these figures, but you've been talking to the Met Office, so what can you tell us?
Well, as you say, Chris, we all love a good moan about the weather, but actually the stats prove us wrong here. According to the Met, this summer so far is 1 degree warmer than the average. One place that's been basking in that this week is Tyndrum. It's about 60 miles north of Glasgow in Scotland, and they've been having a heat wave. The temperature on Wednesday there was 27.2 degrees. Now, if you're watching this, you might feel a bit hard done by. It's not been that warm across the rest of the UK. I asked the Met why.
At the moment, high pressure is situated to the northwest of Scotland, and that's where the warmest, sunniest and driest weather is as a result. The rest of the UK has been largely dry, but with winds going around that high pressure in a clockwise direction, many places have had a cool easterly or northeasterly breeze and a lot of cloud.
Now, Northern Ireland has also been seeing record high temperatures, and this is quite unusual that the high temperatures are in the north and the west of the country rather than the south. Places like London and Hampshire, Sussex have actually seen more rainfall than usual, 50% more. And there are concerns that some of that volatility could be because of climate change, so that's one to watch.
Charanpreet, thank you very much indeed, and the full UK weather forecast is coming up. Finally, there was a golden double in the pool today for Britain's Paralympians in Tokyo, and both of them touched the side just a third of a second ahead of their rivals, and there was more success in the velodrome. It means with 9 golds now, the Paralympics GB team retains its second place in the medals table, as Sangeeta Lau reports.
Kadina Cox begins her race for gold.
She was the last to ride in the cycling final, but Kadina Cox showed no signs of pressure.
She's done it, and she's done it in fantastic style.
Not only did she defend her C4 and 5 time trial title, she did it in a world record-breaking 34-second run.
That was absolutely stunning. This isn't
something Kadina's sisters back at her home in Leeds still can't quite believe.
As soon as she won the medal, everybody's posting on the family chat, yes, Kadina, you've won. Everybody's just so excited, so proud.
And on day 3 of the Tokyo Paralympics, Team GB's gold medal tally just kept going up. In swimming, Hannah Russell retained her S12 backstroke title, just holding off Russian Daria Pikolova by 1/3 of a second.
And it's gold to Great Britain, it's gold to Hannah Russell. What a swim!
And it was an equally dramatic performance from Rhys Dunn in the S14 freestyle, winning gold by 0.34 seconds.
He's going to claim gold for Great Britain!
Bethany Firth, though, just missed out on gold, claiming silver in the S14 freestyle.
It's silver for Bethany Firth.
And in her Paralympic debut, Olivia Broom won bronze with her own personal best lift, a moment she had always dreamed of but never thought possible until now.
Being in the Paralympics was always something that I'd wanted to do ever since I was younger and was getting into sport. And so now to call myself a Paralympian and a medalist, it's the best thing.
And in the last few hours, the men's épée team have won bronze, something these young Paralympians have waited 5 years for, every moment worth it, as Paralympics GB moves to second in the table on day 3 of Tokyo 2020. Sangeeta Lal, ITV News.
That's it. I'll be racing back for tonight's evening news at 6:30. The news and that weather forecast we spoke about is coming up, but from everyone here. Bye-bye.